People who've had a stalker, how did you realize you were being stalked, and what ended up happening? It was my ex. When we broke up it was all very dramatic, and he got on a bus across the country the same day for whatever reason and sent a long message from the bus ending with, "This is not goodbye." I said, "Yes it is, good luck." 2 years later I met my now husband, and I suppose he moved back after 3 years. I started seeing him everywhere. He followed the two of us around Walmart for 45 minutes until I just posted up near a security guard and slipped out as he tried to wait for me to get away from the security guard. Then I saw him wandering around near my mother's house, but I had at that point moved in with my husband. Then I saw him outside of my work. He was clearly trying to get the courage to come in, and he was also very clearly high. Some of the regular police officers came in by chance for their coffee, and he left when they arrived. Then he figured out the general location where I was living, and I saw him sort of wandering around a few times. I didn't go home when I saw him. I went and sat in a public place for a few hours. Then I changed places of work, and I saw him outside about 3 times. I was near a major transportation hub, so I tried to ignore it. But when he started doing the pacing/tweaking/chain smoking thing again, I figured I ought to do something. So I waited for a family friend I knew would be in, who was pretty domineering and I knew would go to bat for me, and let him know who it was and what he was doing. He went outside and told my ex off, I suppose. And scared him, I guess, 'cause he left quite quickly. My family friend was a bus driver, so I gave him a picture and he shared it with some drivers along my regular route, and as long as I stuck to that route, the few more times I saw him trying to get on my bus we drove right past him or the wrong door open to let people off and not let him on. We finally moved again and I quit my job because I had been bouncing around the same chain and was easy to find. Since then I have seen him once, but he didn't see me, and I think it was unrelated because he actually bought something. I just sat in the camera room and watched till he left. It's been an additional 5 years now, so I assume he has figured himself out. I got a sense of doom every time I saw him. He was kind when we dated, never abusive. But he was anti-drugs and anti-smoking, and so seeing him high and things like that set off alarm bells. I know he was not well when he returned. I don't know what would have happened had he gotten close to me. Maybe nothing, but every bone in my body was screaming danger. So I trusted my gut and took steps to maintain distance, and I was okay. The police wouldn't have done anything. No threats were uttered and we were always in public. But all in all it turned out okay. My wife did, it became a real problem. He was a maintenance man at the school where she taught. She was throwing out a lot of old, damaged books. He asked if he could have them for his kids, of course. After that he wanted to always be there, wherever my wife was. He was always sweeping or cleaning near her room. Then one day in the winter, my wife got a flat right after leaving school. It was getting dark and her new best friend was there to fix it. While changing the tire, he started asking inappropriate questions. Of course she said nothing. It got worse and the school administration was ignoring it. I was now going way out of my way to take her and to pick her up from school. She was scared. Then he said something to her while she was eating in the cafeteria. She lost it. She just started screaming and crying for him to leave her alone. They sent her home for a few days paid leave. Since the school was no help, I went to see 2 school board members I knew, but not well. I told them that I had hired an attorney and would be suing the school district unless my wife felt safe. They moved the custodian to another school, but it took months before my wife felt safe. The custodian got in trouble at the next school and was arrested. We never heard from him again. I went on 3 dates with a guy but didn't quite feel like there was a connection. Tried to let him down gently, as he hadn't had a girlfriend before. I was happy to remain friends as he was a friendly guy. I just wasn't attracted to him. This was about May. I've learned a few lessons from this one. He added me on Facebook, which was okay as we'd communicate through there sometimes. A month or so goes by, and he turns up at my house unannounced, saying he was in the area. He actually lived 45 minutes away and decided to go shopping in my town. I wasn't home at the time. My brother messaged me to let me know, and then the guy messaged me too. I apologized and said I was out and wouldn't be home for several hours. That was fine. He went home. He'd picked me up from my house for the 3rd date. A few weeks later, I had accepted an event invitation on Facebook to a car show my mechanic was hosting. The guy turned up at this car event while I was there with my brother and some friends, and I didn't really know what to do about it. My brother kept him entertained and I managed to exchange pleasantries but stayed with my friends. I went for lunch with my friends, and when I got home I found out that the guy had gone to my house again. This time he had left some chocolates, a towel with my name embroidered on it, and a letter. In the letter he explained how he was in love with me, wanted to have children with me, get married, and get a house together. Oh, and the towel was so I could think about him when I dried myself with it. Again, I turned him down because I wasn't into him. A few months later, I'm seeing someone else and he's over at my house. This guy turns up again, unannounced, trying to get hold of me. Why didn't he just message or call me? Luckily my brother is aware I've got the new guy with me, so he tells the guy I'm not home. I had to explain to him in a message that if he wants to see me he actually needs to contact me first, not just turn up unannounced and expect me to be available. It made it much more difficult to want to be friends with him as it was becoming a bit overbearing and I didn't know what he'd try next. So, I had to cut him off. He tried contacting me through several methods, he even changed his number pretending to be someone else. He finally stopped after a year and a half. I was stalked by a guy I went to high school with. Everybody would pick on him and make fun of him for being a loser, but I never did. His mom was a teacher at our school and I loved her, so I never wanted to upset her by being mean to her son. I guess he took my niceness as me having a crush on him, and he became obsessed with me. He would stick love notes in my locker all the time, and he made it a point to come visit his mom's class when he knew I'd be in there. I was her teacher's assistant. Because I was so close with his mom, I never talked to her about it because I didn't want it to be awkward. I was never actually scared of this guy until he started coming to my house in the middle of the night. My dad worked swing shift, and he would be gone a lot at night. This guy would sneak out of his house late at night and come knock on my window or creep around my house. I had to call the cops a couple of times, and at that point I decided I had to talk to his mom. His parents were super apologetic and said they'd take care of it, but he still wouldn't leave me alone. I got married young and moved away from my hometown and didn't think I'd ever have to see him again. One day he sent me a friend request on MySpace and sent this big long message saying how sorry he was for ever making me feel scared or uncomfortable, so I decided to accept his request. I thought, maybe he's actually grown up and changed. At first he seemed like he genuinely just wanted to be friends, but then he started leaving creepy comments on pictures of me and my kids. The final straw was when his wife messaged me and told me to leave her husband alone. She told me that she knew I was in love with him and that I needed to stop messaging him. Apparently this is what he told her when she caught him creeping on my pictures. I showed her screenshots of the messages he had sent me and the comments on my pictures and blocked them both. He has tried to friend me 3 times from different profiles on Facebook and I've had to block all of them. I hope I never see him again. He offered to bring me home after the club. I thought it was nice, but then he knew where I lived. For the next 3 months he was always there when I left my house. He was suddenly on the campus when he studied somewhere else. A few times a week he would be standing and waiting in front of my door. He even asked the neighbors for my spare keys because he was my boyfriend and he locked himself out. Fortunately they didn't believe him. He left letters, roses, coffee and one day a knife. A lot of times when he was waiting in front of my door, I would be sitting in my apartment in silence, hoping that he didn't hear me and would leave soon. He was sometimes there until 3 a.m. I of course blocked him from the beginning, told him many times to leave. He said that he could hear our babies and I would rob us of our future together. I talked to the police, they couldn't do anything because he didn't break a law. One day he called from a different number. My friend picked up and just screamed at him to leave me alone. And then he did. He wasn't in front of my door anymore, not on campus, not in the supermarket. Just gone. But still today I get panic attacks if I see a man with his body type and brown curly hair in the corner of my eye. I was repeatedly harassed by my ex after cutting him off because he cheated on and manipulated me during our 3-year relationship and he didn't like that I wasn't in his control anymore. After we hashed it out for the last time over text, I blocked him on everything except iMessages but stopped responding to his texts. He sent me a birthday text, tried to talk to me after the girlfriend he was with while still seeing me broke up with him, commented on my YouTube channel, then texted me from a new number. This went on for a bit. 2 months later, I get a text from my dad. The guy showed up at my front door at 11 p.m. while I was at work, wanting to talk to me. I freaked out, panicked a bit in the car, then drove home. As I was walking up the driveway to get inside, my dad was waiting at the door for me. My ex's car stopped in the middle of the road when he spotted me. I ran inside, he parked and came up to the door again. My dad answered for me and told him to leave. It took me 20 to 25 minutes to get home. He waited for me, circling around my house. It was terrifying. A month after that he made a pickup order for the store I work at, and I packed his order. It scared me because during the holidays I help with making orders and stockroom operations, so if I had been working on the day he picked it up, I probably would have been the one to give it to him. A few weeks ago he sent me a letter about how good of a person I am, how much he has changed, how he misses me, but most importantly how he never cheated on me, and everyone who says otherwise, yes, there are witnesses, is a liar. My current boyfriend texted him telling him to leave me alone, and my ex blew up at him and said my current boyfriend was manipulating me because I was in a bad mindset and people were telling me all these supposed lies about cheating and gaslighting. The ironic part is, my ex talks badly about me to our friends and says I ruined his life and that I'm a terrible manipulative person. I wouldn't be surprised if he has an alt account trying to keep tabs on me. But yeah, that's where I'm at. He has serious anger issues and lying problems, but I don't think I can get a restraining order because he hasn't made threats on my life that I know of, and I'd rather not see his face again. My dad says if there's any more contact he's going to call his mother, but I wish he had told her the night my ex came to my house. I'm still terrified to come home at night or even walk downstairs at night. I don't feel safe in my own home, but there's nothing I can really do. If I do anything, it'll set him off. I know if we see each other in public he'll run right up to me, and in that case I have a plan, but I think or at least hope he's done putting any effort in. Not very intense stalking compared to what it could be, and there's a lot more context than just, I have a stalker, just taking the opportunity to share and vent. There was this weird dude that used to call my house when I was young. One day when my sister answered the landline she heard a man start asking her questions about who she was, name and age etc. My sister thought it was one of her friends messing around and didn't think much of it. Later that day my mum answered the phone to the same dude asking for the girl. He proceeded to call about 50 times a day from 3 different London landlines. He never spoke to my sister after the first time but always asked for her. He was vulgar and threatening when my dad spoke to him. In the end we had to pay to have all 3 of the numbers blocked for 6 months or so. The police didn't care. If I recall it's because he was calling from hundreds of miles away. Even though I never spoke to him it was just so unsettling hearing the phone ring so often. I think we unplugged it a lot of the time before getting him blocked. We have no idea who he was or why he harassed us like that. I imagine maybe he just spent all day calling numbers until people answered. I've been stalked a few times, but I'll tell about one stalker. I used to play Terra all the time back when I was a freshman and sophomore in high school. I grew to have many online friends from the game, but grew close to the people in an 18+ guild I joined. The guild I was in was a fairly big guild at the time, so you eventually had little cliques here and there. Nothing new. There was one guy who was very off though. Very off. I logged in one day and had almost instantly received a whisper from him after I greeted everyone who was online. He said hello, that he was new, asked how my day was going, etc. Just general stuff. It got weird when he became insistent on role-playing. I declined every time that day because I was very ill. I just wanted to play a little alone until I decided to sleep again. But every single day after that, he never stopped pressuring me for roleplay. Not only that, he had a strange obsession with horses. Nothing wrong with liking horses, but I draw the line when it becomes weird. He would notice I would roleplay with others and not him, so he began to get demanding. Soon enough, I blocked him. At that time, when you blocked someone, it was just their character. And you'd see, you blocked made up Nami, appear on your screen, but the person's other characters could still be seen, and they could talk to you through them. Basically, you had to block all characters. But you would know when they deleted a character you blocked because it would say you unblocked them. And that's what happened. I blocked this guy over and over, but he kept deleting his character, remaking new ones, coming back into the guild, and finding me. Even my alt characters, he'd find me. Soon, he found my Steam, my Facebook, my Instagram. He kept trying to interact and talk to me for 6 months. I told my guild leader, she did nothing. I reported the characters and accounts and kept blocking, but he kept coming back. Before he disappeared, he found what he thought was my address. It wasn't mine. It was in my town, but not my address. I was very careful about where I went after that for about another 6 months and got scared off Terra. Someone I hadn't spoken to in years had been stalking me online and had gotten my passwords to some accounts. Don't share passwords over multiple accounts, and she ended up impersonating me online for years without my knowledge. She catfished people with my pics on dating sites, created a fake Twitter pretending to be me, an Instagram, and even hijacked my old Reddit account. The people who found out she was using my identity told me about it, then tried to blackmail me with the information, under the pretense that they would convince authorities that it was actually me catfishing people and so on. They also claimed she was asking people for money in my name, but refused to show me proof of that. I had to do a deep cleaning of my online presence and confront the person who had been impersonating me. It took a long time, but I got her to stop and I got the blackmailers off my back. Be careful online, kids. I was new in town and pretty young at the time. This was in the late 90s. I didn't really have parents and was living alone in my uncle's house. I enrolled myself in school and was trying to figure out where the bus stop was. I saw a group of teenagers walking down the road and a few stragglers were a block behind them or so. I asked one guy who was walking by himself if the bus stop was in that direction. He said yes and I awkwardly asked if I could walk with him, explaining I was new. I do remember the driver saying something about, "Oh, there's two of you," when we got on the bus, but I didn't think anything of it. On the ride home the same guy walked just behind me from where the school bus let us off all the way to my street. He didn't try to talk to me or anything, just silently walked about 30 feet behind me. I went in my house and noticed he was across the street sitting on that house's porch swing. Must be my new neighbor, I thought. Then I noticed the same guy walking behind me from class to class in school too. I thought our schedules must be weirdly lined up so that almost all our classes were next door to each other. Every day he walked behind me. Some days, to make it less weird, I'd say hello and walk with him and make small talk since we were obviously headed in the same direction, but most of the time he would just walk a few feet behind me. Some days he had flowers for me and would give them to me but still not talk to me. Every day I saw him across the street playing with who I assumed were his little brothers for hours on end. We didn't know each other, probably only spoke to each other a handful of times, and even when he gave me gifts he never tried to speak to me. He was just always nearby. My best friend from my old town came to visit for spring break. He and I had a lot of fun together, then he went home. The neighbor lady from across the street came over to ask me to tell my boyfriend to stay out of their yard and said she was uncomfortable with him playing with her son. Assuming she was talking about my male best friend who had just spent a week with me, I told her no problem, even though I was confused why or when my friend had ever gone in her yard and played with her kids in the first place. Honestly, I thought maybe she was crazy. Anyhow, late one night I was talking to my best friend on the phone while sitting up against the window in my room but kept hearing the bushes outside scratching the window, so I used my fingers to spread the blinds and look out to see what the deal was. To my surprise the guy from the bus was peeping in. Startled, I screamed and he ran off. I got dressed and huffed over to the neighbors to confront him for peeping in my windows. The neighbor lady answered the door and I started telling her off for her son being a peeping Tom. Turns out the dude wasn't her son. The guy who followed me home every day did not live there and he was who she was talking about when she asked me to tell my boyfriend to stay out of her yard and stop playing with her kids. We called the police and they found him walking several blocks over. We never found out why he was walking behind the group of teenagers the first day I saw him, but he never even went to that school. He had followed me onto the bus. The bus driver had been alerted a new student, me, was starting and when he got on with me she made that comment about it being two of us because she thought he was my brother or something. He was full on stalking me, waiting for me outside my classes to walk me to my next class and spending the times that I was in class at the cemetery next door, hence the flowers he often gave me. He was robbing the graves of flowers while I was in math class, then giving them to me while he walked me to science. He wasn't a student. He was a mentally disturbed 19-year-old who lived 5 miles away and had been homeschooled that I had a chance encounter with that led him to stalking me for 7 months. The police told me they thought he was just a harmless kid in love but that his parents agreed to send him off for some help. My teachers were notified to be on the lookout and campus security beefed up for a bit. I guess everyone assumed he was a new student when they saw him in the halls, and since he had been homeschooled nobody knew him to know he wasn't even high school age. I never saw him after that. It was pretty wild. It started while I was still in high school. He would be in a few of my classes and we would occasionally see each other around town, a very small, rural town. It slowly turned into him showing up at some of my friend group's hangout spots and saying that I had inspired him to start looking into similar hobbies. We thought it was kinda weird but just brushed it off and avoided him. Flash forward a couple weeks into the start of summer vacation. He had found or followed me to all of my favorite places and to my work even though both were sometimes towns over from ours. I would see his car at parks where I did outdoor painting, at my place of work as well as at friends' houses, and he would drive past the house of the family I nannied for during my days on. I thought it was creepy and told local authorities, but they told me not to worry. This went on for the rest of high school and up until graduation. I didn't tell anyone what university I was going to and lied, claiming it was 1 hour away from mine. He was accepted and attended there while I left for another. He found out after a semester that I wasn't there and showed up at my dorm hall. He tried to break in and convince me and other people in the building to just let him in. I hid out in another girl's room until my friend was able to pick me up and take me to her boyfriend's off-campus apartment. I found out he was arrested the next morning for assaulting an RA. I called and showed them the evidence I had for his persistent stalking and finally filed a restraining order. He just got released a few months ago and I have never been more nervous. I'm just happy my current job and living area has amazing security and they all have pictures and his information to be safe. I may be paranoid, but better safe than end up on a true crime podcast.